The saga of Eric Hilliard Nelson, better known to millions as Ricky Nelson, is a quintessential American tragedy, a story of a star born into the purest glow of celebrity, only to have his bright, influential life extinguished by a darkness far more prosaic and heartbreaking than fight. Born in 1940 to the legendary entertainers Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, Ricky was not just a child of Hollywood. He was, in essence, a child of the national consciousness, growing up inside the living rooms of America, through the groundbreaking, long-running radio and television series, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. This unique upbringing meant his childhood and adolescence were performed for the masses, a constant public tightrope walk between the authentic self and the clean-cut, television-perfect persona demanded by his family's wholesome brand. This exposure, however, provided a platform that few artists could ever dream of, setting the stage for a parallel career that would completely redefine the nascent landscape of rock and roll. Unlike his acting peers, Nelson leveraged his on-screen charm to launch a successful music career, becoming a formidable figure in the late 1950s. His debut single, a 1957 cover of Fats Domino's I'm Walkin', immediately announced his musical prowess, rocketing him to the top of the charts and establishing him as a genuine teen idol, an entity entirely separate from the confines of the family sitcom. His smooth, easygoing vocal style and signature rockabilly sound, often backed by the innovative guitar work of James Burton, helped make the new, often feared genre of rock music palatable to a conservative, mainstream audience. He was among the first rock artists to appear consistently on national television, introducing the sound to an entire generation and setting a precedent for the media saturation that would later define acts like the Beatles. By his early 20s, Ricky Nelson was an artistic and commercial juggernaut, having sold millions of records and cementing his legacy as one of the top-selling male solo artists of the entire era, a dual threat of acting charisma and musical talent that seemed destined to endure forever. However, the enduring image of the eternal teen idol was one Nelson was determined to shed, showcasing a commendable artistic integrity that would ultimately cost him his commercial peak. As the vibrant musical counterculture of the mid-1960s began to shift taste toward folk and psychedelic rock, Nelson refused to simply chase ephemeral trends or mimic the British invasion. Instead, he made a conscious, difficult pivot, choosing to evolve his sound into a richer, more roots-driven country rock style. This courageous transition was formalized with the creation of the Stone Canyon Band, a group instrumental in pioneering a genre that would later be popularized by acts like the Eagles and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. The conflict between his past fame and his desired artistic future came to a head at a pivotal 1972 concert at Madison Square Garden. When Nelson played his new mature material, the audience, longing for the nostalgia of his old hits, reacted with boos and dissatisfaction, demanding he stick to the classics. This moment of rejection was not a failure, but a crucible, leading directly to his massive comeback hit, the reflective and defiant Garden Party, a song that encapsulated his philosophy with the iconic line, "But it's all right now. I learned my lesson. Well, you see, you can't please everyone, so ya got to please yourself." The single wasn't just a comeback. It was an anthem about the price of authenticity in a world obsessed with superficial celebrity. Beyond the recording studio, Nelson maintained a dynamic presence on screen, leveraging his innate charm in significant film roles. In his performance as a gunslinger, alongside John Wayne and Dean Martin in Howard Hawks' classic 1959 western, Rio Bravo, was a defining moment, bringing a fresh, youthful magnetism to the genre that Hawks himself credited with the film's impressive box office success. Nelson's acting career, punctuated by collaborations with Jack Lemmon and numerous guest spots on popular television throughout the 60s and 70s, demonstrated a versatility that extended far beyond the confines of his teen idol status, proving he was a multifaceted artist, committed to his craft. Even when his artistic choices were not the most commercially expedient, the private life of Ricky Nelson was, predictably, as scrutinized as his public performances. And it was in this realm that the strains of his unique celebrity truly began to show. His teenage dating life was often subjected to the watchful critical eye of his mother, Harriet Nelson, who maintained strong traditional beliefs about decorum and public image, heavily influencing his personal choices to protect the family's brand and his career trajectory. This maternal oversight eventually gave way to the great love of his life, Chris Harmon, daughter of football star Tom Harmon and actress Elise Knox. Their 1963 wedding was a high-profile, celebrated union of Hollywood royalty, seemingly securing the image of the perfect American family. Together, they raised 4 children, Tracy, who became an actress, and the twin sons Gunnar and Matthew, who would later find musical success as the band Nelson, making history as the first family to have 3 generations of hit makers. Yet, beneath this glamorous facade, the marriage began a slow, painful deterioration. The pressures of Ricky's demanding touring schedule, the creative conflict between his desire to evolve artistically and the public's desire for nostalgia, and growing emotional distance between the couple intensified throughout the late 1970s. Rumours of infidelity and mounting disagreements over lifestyle eventually led to a contentious separation and a lengthy, emotionally draining legal battle that captured the attention of the media. The divorce was finalised in 1982, marking the end of nearly 2 decades of marriage and leaving a profound emotional scar on Nelson, the impact of which was often reflected in the more melancholic themes of his later musical work. He remained a devoted father, striving to maintain stability for his children, but the collapse of his family life added a layer of deep personal complexity to a star already grappling with the relentless expectations of his lifelong fame. It is this personal and professional complexity that makes the true circumstances of his death not just a historical note, but a profound and outrageous tragedy. For 38 years, the plane crash that killed Ricky Nelson, his fiancée Helen Blair, and 5 band members on New Year's Eve, 1985, remained a source of intense, unsatisfying conjecture. Initial reports focused on the simple verdict of mechanical failure, citing a malfunctioning cabin heater as the likely ignition source for the fire that engulfed the vintage DC-3 aircraft near Dalb, Texas. This ambiguity, however, created a vacuum quickly filled by sensational, unfair rumours, most damagingly the speculation that drug use, specifically freebasing cocaine, was somehow responsible for the onboard blaze, a narrative that unfairly tainted Nelson's name. Toxicology reports later confirmed no drugs or alcohol in his system, but the cloud of uncertainty and scandal lingered, fueled by the National Transportation Safety Board's inability to definitively pinpoint the exact ignition source. The resolution, when it finally came, arrived not from official bodies, but from the tenacious persistence of aviation historians, forensic analysts, and journalists who refused to accept the open-ended verdict. A meticulous re-examination of technical records and, critically, new interviews with aviation mechanics and the surviving pilots unveiled a far more disturbing picture that completely solved the mystery and laid the blame squarely on human failings. The investigation revealed that the World War II-era Douglas DC-3 was operating under gravely compromised safety conditions due to chronic, well-documented maintenance neglect. More damning than simple neglect was the evidence that the plane's heating system, known to be faulty, had been jury-rigged, improperly repaired in a manner that brazenly violated federal aviation safety standards. This dangerously makeshift setup placed the malfunctioning heater directly next to flammable materials beneath the cabin floorboards. When the unit inevitably sparked, it rapidly created a catastrophic situation, filling the cabin with toxic smoke and fumes. The lack of an accessible onboard fire extinguisher and fire retardant insulation meant the passengers had absolutely no chance of survival, likely succumbing to smoke inhalation long before the final, desperate crash landing. The most chilling and heartbreaking revelation is not that the fire was accidental, but that it was entirely and explicitly preventable. The individuals responsible for the aircraft's operation were aware of the perilous conditions and flagrantly permitted the plane to fly. Ricky Nelson, a cultural touchstone who embodied the transition from the innocent 50s to the turbulent 60s, was lost not to fate or rock and roll excess, A grim cautionary tale that ensures the solving of the mystery only deepens the profound sense of tragedy and injustice.